one job.
Look at you all.
We'll call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. I need a motion for adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on Tuesday, October 15th, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening. However, we do have some hearings. We'll open the public hearing for variation order PC 7519. This is for Lou Antonician Estates at Meehan Estates Limited at 141, 151 Oxford Common. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
Good evening, Council. The request I think that you have in your hands is fairly straightforward. I'll just take any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions for Mr. Antonician? No? Okay. Need a motion to close the public hearing?
Be it resolved that the public hearing for variation order PC 75-19 for Lou Antonician and Meehan Estates Limited at 141 and 151 Oxford Common now be closed. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, the issue that we have right now for PC 7519 is that the applicant wishes to vary the following. Front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 4.572 meters. And then the north and south side yard requirement of 3 meters to be reduced to 2.4384 meters. As always, we have the alternative to approve or deny the application. Bit of the background, it's not something we're unfamiliar with. Meehan Estates Limited and Lou Antonician are applying for a variation order to allow the following. Meehan Estates Limited did receive previous approval for the front, rear, and side yards to be reduced. The minute reference is there for your reference. The listed variances were to reduce the front yard down to 5.944 and both side yard requirements down to 2.895. There is a request for the building located at 345, 352 Oxford Common to have the north and south side yards reduced 1.695 meters. You can see the reference there. And the building located at 322 and 332 Oxford Common received a variation to allow the north side yard to be reduced to 1.695 meters, and your minute reference is there as well. In addition, the building located at 152 and 162 Oxford Common received a variance to allow the front yard to be reduced to 5.944 meters and the south side to be reduced to 2.896. And the minute references are there as well. The building is in an R2 residential two-family zone. The application has been circulated to the various city departments with no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners with a 100-meter radius, and there have been no objections. So on that note, it's the recommendation of this committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Meehan Estates Limited, Lou Antonician, to vary the following. Front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 4.572 meters, and the north and south side yard requirement of 3 meters to be reduced to 2.4384 meters at the property known as 141 and 151 Oxford Common, which is legally described as lots 5 and 6, Plan 58988 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We'll open the public hearing for conditional use PC 7519, and this is for Troy and Heidi Adams at 144 4th Street Southeast. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
I am, to answer any questions that you may have for me.
Heidi, can we just get your name for the record?
Heidi Adams.
Thank you. Did council have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Need a motion to close the hearing?
And I so move, and it be resolved that the public hearing for conditional use PC 7619 for Troy and Heidi Adams at 144 4th Street Southeast now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, council, what we have before us is a request for a conditional use for file number PC 7619. And the issue is to allow a home daycare in an R1 residential single-family zone. Three alternatives we have is, of course, to approve the conditional use as presented, to approve it with conditions, or to deny the conditional use. Bit of the background, Heidi Adams has applied for a conditional use to allow a home daycare in an R1 residential single-family zone. As we know in the past, other conditional use requests have been approved. There's a number of minute references there for your information. Both have been located in an R1 residential single-family zone before, and most recently there was a conditional use request for home daycare in an R1 residential single-family zone having been approved, and the minute reference is there as well. The application was circulated to the various city departments. There were no concerns, and public notices have been sent to all property owners with 100 meters, and there's been no objections. So on that note, and it's the recommendation of this committee, and I so move, that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Heidi Adams to allow a home daycare in an R1 residential single-family zone at the property 144 4th Street Southeast, which is legally described as Lot 10, Block 5, Plan 21-428 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Going to move right into committees. First up is Finance, Legislative and Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. Your committee has nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Services Committee. Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Worship. Nothing for Community Services Committee this evening.
Councillor Wall, the Waterworks Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Waterworks Committee has nothing to report this evening.
Transportation Committee. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Finally, Public Safety Committee. Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing to report this evening from Public Safety.
Thank you. We have no deferred business and no new business and no old business. So council is adjourned at 6:07 p.m. And we're going to move right into committee. We'll call committee to order at 6:07 p.m. First up is Finance, Legislative and Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. I do plan on bringing forth one item for council's consideration at our next meeting, and that is funding for Phase 1 wastewater plant rebuild, and for funds that were not or will not be covered through government granting. And so that is for the low-rate aerobic reactor, and that is out at our wastewater treatment plant. And I think many of you know that most of that construction was done on this project in the past 2 years, and now we've switched over from our former BVF into the LRAR. And so I think when we went through this project, we had a good understanding of what was going to be covered for the provincial government, what was not going to be covered. And it turns out there's more that's not going to be covered, and to the tune of almost $950,000. So the recommendation is going to be that we approve a resolution to remove that from our nutrient removal reserve to cover that. And I guess the only question I have for administration on this item is it is a sizable amount that is not covered by the province. So just maybe a little bit more information in terms of the breakdown of where we thought it was going to be covered and why it wasn't. Through your worship to administration.
Through your worship to Councillor Buds. In terms of the $950,000, there's a number of draws that are creating those non-claimable expenses from the province. The largest cost you'll see is the plant redesign. So when Simplot removed themselves from our wastewater strategy, we had to take a look at our overall project and redesign it to accommodate for lower volumes. That was a substantial cost that was not covered by the province or the federal government. The original design cost was, I believe, funded by P3 Canada, but since we were going to a newer overall engineering, we had to have a re-engineer to change to the overall capacity, and then of course we had to redo our business case for our application for our project with the federal government for funding.
So the bulk of the expenditures is because of the redesign.
That's correct. Well, we are still concluding these, through your worship to Councillor Buds, we are still concluding our project and wrapping up final expenses. This number is put as a sort of cautionary number. We're getting that approval from council. Just, we assume it will be less, but we don't know that for sure, and rather having to come back to council for additional funds. The goal is to request a larger withdrawal, and then as we conclude our expenses with the province and sort of level out our two balance sheets, we will get that proper amount and withdraw from the reserve. The amount not used will be returned to that reserve.
It is worth noting that that reserve is well-funded and can handle the reserve reallocations. I have nothing more unless there's any questions from council on the particular item. Hearing none, that concludes my committee report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buds. Councillor Meyer, City Planning and Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. And next council meeting, I will be bringing two reports forward. One, of course, for the information only, probably my favorite topic to talk about. The building permits, as you can see, for 2019 year to date, is almost $106 million more than it was last year. So that's something we can discuss if there's any further questions at council. That meeting or that report will be there. The second one is going to be a zoning and building bylaw amendment. So, of course, the issue that we might be aware of is to amend the city's zoning and building bylaws. So the analysis, when you get into that, is that the Portage Planning District is planning to amend and update both the city and the RM's Portage's zoning and building bylaws. So the recommendation at that point in time, first of all, the Planning District does plan to hire a consultant to review and update the bylaws. Once they're in draft form, the consultant would meet with both councils and review the proposed amendments. The Planning District will then prepare the final bylaws for council to adopt. The province can provide funding up to 50% of the costs, but since the zoning bylaws are owned by the respective municipalities, resolutions from both councils are required. So I'll be bringing that forward next council meeting with the recommendation to amend the city Portage la Prairie zoning bylaws. So if there's any questions right now? Yes.
Councillor Buds.
Just looking for some confirmation. I do believe that we're using the same consultant that worked on the development plan that will do this work. Is that correct, Mr. Brooks? Good. So there'll be some quick lift, I would say, when we're considering the knowledge that was used in the development plan and how it applies. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yes, and I think it's also important to note that the planning district will cover all costs for this year, other than the government funding portion.
Thank you. No further questions.
Seeing none, that would be the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Draycott, Community Services Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have third quarter reports for a number of organizations that work with community services. As Ms. Espy is here, would you like to run through PCRC's report and give us some of the highlights?
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. Good evening, Council and Your Worship. A report with more staff is now 11 pages long, so I'll give you the Coles notes. Over the summer, we hired Mitch Tilk as our local immigration partnership program coordinator, and that partnership council currently is working on their priority areas, which are listed in the report. Skills Up wrapped up, which I think we've talked about. The green team also finished. A total of 28 tags were covered up this year, and that includes painting at the BDO Center and also the Tupper Street Bridge, or the Skyline Bridge, which is a large project and usually takes about a week in itself. Communities in Bloom, we got 5 blooms this year, which was exciting. We held a number of events, and it was, really busy summer. We have a few new programs out of our office, a seed library and a community mailbox. We were finding that some clients coming across the hub table who were transient and didn't have anywhere to send, government mail or catch up on their bills, We created a community mailbox, so anybody who does not have a permanent address can use our mailbox for government mail only. We won't accept packages or anything like that, but important documents that they need, they're able to send to our office. And Cornell is working with the Portage Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition, and they're currently writing questions for a survey, and they'll be reaching out to the urban Indigenous population to identify some gaps or needs for service in our community. So that will come out in the next little while too, and Vienna's very busy sitting on committees, but yeah, lots going on.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I also have the reports for the Heritage Committee. They did go through some grant applications that they had done, as well as some discussions they've had with CPR Station and Fort Lorraine Museum and the library. So lots of work going on still there. Parks Committee includes an update on where they are in terms of fundraising, some of the fundraising efforts that's taken place over the summer months, as well as the Party in the Park. And then we do have a Public Art Committee report as well, so asking for an extension of their grant to 2020 for the water feature, as it hasn't been completed in the Parks Department just yet. You'll notice that lots of the reports actually have good conversation between all four of these organizations back and forth. So unless there are any questions for me, those are our third quarter reports that we have this evening.
Councillor Wall?
Just a comment on the Heritage Committee report. The Heritage Committee meetings that I've been attending for the past few months have been very interesting. They have a small committee, but pretty dedicated. They did ask me to review the city bylaw that provides for a tax relief for people doing renovations to heritage homes. The problem with the bylaw that we saw was that you had to first be approved by the province as a heritage property to qualify for the city tax relief, which was $500 a year up to 10 years. And if you qualified for the provincial designation, you then qualified for up to $30,000 in matching grants. The bylaw has been in place for 7 years. No one has applied for this tax relief. There are only, I think, about 3 provincially designated properties in town, and their criteria is pretty stringent, so it's not likely we're going to see a lot of properties qualify for it. So the recommendation that I've brought forward is to pass a bylaw to rescind that bylaw.
Councillor Buds?
So just to be clear, you're bringing forth, Councillor Wall, you're bringing forth a request when that bylaw is under review that it get rescinded? Is that what the form? Because we do have a process to review all bylaws now, and so I guess that one will just come up in normal rotation. We'll deal with it then. Okay.
That would be fine.
Thank you very much. If there are no other questions about my third quarter reports, I would also like to announce that the City of Portage la Prairie Council has selected our youth councillor for this school year. Ms. Abby Davidson will be joining us next council meeting, I do believe. And Abby comes to us from PCI. She's very, she seems like a very well put together young lady who will do lots of great work in that position. So we're excited to have her join us at the council table.
Okay.
And that is all for my Community Services Committee this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Drake. Councillor.
That's right.
Councillor Draycott. Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Waterworks Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have 2 reports that we'll bring forward to the next council meeting, the third quarter report from the RCMP, as well as the third quarter report for bylaw enforcement that everybody has had a chance to peruse. But mostly today, I just want to take the time to say that Your Worship and I were lucky enough to have a meeting today with Justice Minister Cullen, and many other community stakeholders with a big announcement for our community, and I would ask Mrs. Espy to speak on that.
Thank you, Councillor Knox. It was very exciting this morning. In August, we received notice from the Minister of Justice's office that the Portage la Prairie Hub was going to be receiving $65,000 for a full-time coordinator position. And we were able to make that announcement this morning. So Minister Cullen did come out and met with a group of people from the systems leadership table this morning to make that announcement, and we're really excited to move forward. The hub model will be changing slightly now that we have the full-time coordinator, and we'll be providing a wraparound model. We'll switch to a consent-based model, and we'll be able to follow some families for up to a year in support, rather than providing an immediate intervention and then leaving it up to the families to follow through on that. So we're very excited about that. And Mary Lawrence was hired as the hub coordinator, and she'll be coming to attend City Council at some point in November to give Council an update on the program and what it'll look like moving forward, because it will look a lot different. But we will see less files come across our table, but the quality of care will be much greater. So we're very excited.
Thank you. I would just like to congratulate Mary Lawrence on being the new hub coordinator, and also just commend that systems leadership table for being so engaged in this process and understanding that our community needs change, and hopefully we'll see some great results from this. So we're exciting day. Thank you. And that so ends my report.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Knox. And Councillor Budge, you had a question.
Sorry, did you have a question for me?
So yeah, I was just wondering about the announcement and the change. Is the amount of stakeholders around the table the same? Or are we looking at the same? No, we're not.
No, the amount of stakeholders is grown with the change in the way the hub table works. It's turning into a consent-based model, which some of our stakeholders that had an issue with it before, such as Southern Health, are very now engaged at this table. So it's good news story.
Real good.
Any further questions for Councillor Knox? Okay, well, hearing none. Committee is adjourned at 6:22 p.m. Thank you for coming out, everybody.